Hey everybody, it's Julia Kavanaugh and
I'm Nancy Ham.
welcome to Postpartum Perspectives, the place to come to hear all things newborn care and postpartum related.
We hope you enjoy the following podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive into the world of postpartum doula care. But this time we're going to be looking at it from a holistic perspective.
Okay.
So we're talking about homeopathy, closing of the bone ceremonies, all of those different practices that really support a family.
Yeah.
On a much deeper level than just, typical postpartum doula care.
Yeah. And it's really fascinating because holistic postpartum care really acknowledges that becoming a parent is about so much more than just, the physical recovery. It's about navigating those emotional, mental, and then even spiritual changes that come with this huge life transition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So when we talk about a postpartum doula, what exactly do they do? What does that support look like in those early days and weeks?
Well, you can imagine the practical help is huge, right? Things like infant care, lighthouse work, meal prep. But really what sets doulas apart is their ability to provide that space for processing those roller coaster postpartum emotions.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And studies have actually shown that mothers who receive emotional support have lower rates of postpartum depression and anxiety.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's not just about having, someone come in and do the dishes. It's about having that emotional support system in place.
Absolutely.
Someone to validate your experience as well.
Exactly. And, it's that support that really benefits the entire family, not just the birthing parent.
Yeah.
Everyone thrives when that foundation is strong, right?
That's a cool name.
Plus, doulas are like walking encyclopedias when it comes to evidence-based information on things like breastfeeding, newborn care, and postpartum recovery. So they really empower families to make informed choices.
I love that. Speaking of empowerment, let's talk about what makes this approach holistic. You mentioned homeopathy, nutritional support, and even ceremonies like yoni steaming and closing of the bones. Can you elaborate on some of these practices and how they contribute to the overall well-being?
A new parent, of course. So homeopathy, for example, uses highly diluted substances to address a wide range of postpartum concerns, from sleep disturbances to emotional imbalances.
Interesting.
Nutritional support focuses on replenishing the body with nutrient-dense foods that promote healing and energy. And ceremonies like closing of the bones, which is practiced in many cultures, offer a symbolic way to honor the birthing process and help the mother transition back into her body.
It sounds like these practices address the physical and emotional needs of a new parent in a very gentle and nurturing way.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that healing happens on multiple levels and supporting the whole person.
I love that. Now, it's important to clarify that these practices are not medical treatments, right?
Absolutely. Postpartum doulas work in conjunction with healthcare providers, not in place of them. They offer education and guidance, but never give medical advice.
Because they respect those boundaries. Or that situation refers the expertise of a medical professional.
That's right. They're skilled at recognizing when a referral to a doctor or specialist is necessary.
Okay, good. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about the postpartum period itself, often referred to as the fourth trimester. What can you tell us about the massive physical and emotional changes happening in a person's body during this time?
Well, hormonally, it's a roller coaster. Estrogen and progesterone, which were at an all-time high during pregnancy, plummet after birth.
Yeah.
And this can trigger mood swings, fatigue, and even postpartum depression.
Oh. So with those intense hormonal fluctuations, how can doulas support someone navigating that on top of everything else?
Well, they play a crucial role in providing emotional support, reassurance, and even practical tips for managing those symptoms. Plus, they can help connect families with therapists or support groups if needed. It's all about meeting the individual needs of the client.
That makes a lot of sense. What about the other hormones that are at play during this time?
Well, oxytocin, the bonding hormone, stays elevated, which is wonderful for fostering that connection between parent and baby.
Right.
Did you know that studies have shown that skin-to-skin contact between a mother and her newborn actually boosts oxytocin levels in both of them?
That's incredible.
Yeah, it really makes you realize just how powerful those early moments of connection are.
Absolutely.
And then prolactin, the hormone responsible for milk production, also increases rapidly. And this is all part of the body's natural preparation for breastfeeding.
Okay. So speaking of breastfeeding, how do those hormonal shifts play into the physical recovery process,
Right.
especially when it comes to the uterus?
So the uterus shrinking back to its pre-pregnancy size, a process called uterine involution, is heavily influenced by hormones. And breastfeeding actually helps with this, as it stimulates oxytocin, which causes uterine contraction.
Oh, wow. So breastfeeding isn't just about nutrition. It actually helps the uterus get back to normal.
Exactly.
That's fascinating.
And gentle exercises like walking and pelvic floor exercises can also be beneficial for recovery, once cleared by a healthcare provider, of course.
Yeah, right. Of course. Now, depending on the type of birth, there are different things to consider, like vaginal versus cesarean recovery.
Precisely. So with a vaginal birth, the focus is on soothing any soreness or swelling, especially if there was tearing or an episiotomy.
Okay.
Ice packs, sitz baths, over-the-counter pain relievers, and specific positions for sitting can make a big difference.
I see. And what about recovering from a C-section?
So that recovery generally takes a bit longer, about 4 to 6 weeks. And avoiding heavy lifting and strenuous activity is key to protect the incision.
Okay.
Supporting the abdomen when coughing or sneezing also helps. And of course, keeping the incision clean and dry to prevent infection is crucial.
It sounds like having that doula support could be invaluable during those critical weeks of recovery, no matter what type of birth you had.
Absolutely. And we haven't even touched on things like lochia, that postpartum bleeding, or the common breastfeeding challenges like engorgement and nipple soreness. But before we dive into those topics, let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've covered so far. What stands out to you about the role of a postpartum doula?
I think for me, it's just amazing how a doula can step in and really ease that transition into parenthood.
Yeah.
They bring so much to the table.
Yeah.
In terms of knowledge and expertise.
Yeah, you got it. Like they combine all of those practical skills
Yep.
with the evidence-based information
Yeah.
and just a genuine understanding of what new parents are going through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we talked about those physical and emotional changes after birth. But let's dive into some specific areas where doulas can provide that targeted support. Take breastfeeding, for example. It's supposed to be this beautiful bonding experience. But let's be real, it can also be incredibly challenging.
Oh, you're not kidding. Engorgement, nipple soreness, latch difficulties. These are all common issues. That can make breastfeeding feel really overwhelming, especially for first-time parents. I mean, there's a reason why lactation consultants exist.
Right. And knowing that doulas are trained to provide guidance on things like positioning, latch techniques, and different breastfeeding holds. That must be so reassuring for new parents.
Absolutely. They can help troubleshoot those common problems, offer tips for maximizing milk production. It's almost like having a breastfeeding coach.
Yeah.
Right there with you.
I love that. And then if more complex issues arise, they can connect families with lactation consultants for that specialized support as well.
That's right. It's all about providing the right level of support at the right time.
It sounds like having a doula is like having a whole team on your side during those early days.
You could say that.
Yeah. And speaking of teams, another area where doulas shine is in supporting the birthing parents. Physical recovery.
Absolutely. We talked about the uterus getting back to its normal size, healing after a vaginal birth or C-section. But what about those less talked about aspects of postpartum recovery, like lochia and pelvic floor health?
Oh, that's a good point. Those are definitely important pieces of the puzzle. So lochia, that postpartum bleeding, what role do doulas play in helping families manage that?
So doulas can help families monitor their lochia, explain what's normal, what to watch out for, and when to reach out to a healthcare provider. Just providing that reassurance and making sure everything is progressing as it should.
It's almost like having a personal guide, someone who knows what to expect, and it can help you feel more confident.
That's a great way to put it. And when it comes to pelvic floor health, doulas can be incredible resources.
Yeah, because those muscles go through a lot during childbirth.
Exactly. Weakened pelvic floor muscles can lead to issues like incontinence, prolapse, and pain.
And I imagine that's where those Kegel exercises we mentioned earlier come in handy.
You know it. Doulas can teach families how to do Kegels correctly, encourage them to make those exercises a regular part of their routine. Strong pelvic floor muscles are so important for overall health and well-being.
It's like they're helping you rebuild your strength
Yeah.
from the inside out.
I love that analogy. It's about regaining control and feeling empowered in your own body.
Yeah, and that sense of empowerment really seems to be a central theme in holistic postpartum doula care, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's not about telling families what to do, but rather giving them the tools and knowledge they need to make their own informed decisions.
So it's less about providing care and more about fostering that sense of agency.
I like how you put that.
Yeah. And that brings us back to the idea of collaboration. between the doula and the client. Creating a postpartum plan together ensures that everyone's on the same page and that the care provided truly aligns with the family's values and preferences.
Precisely. It's a roadmap for a smoother postpartum journey, a journey that looks different for every family, I might add. There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
This has been so eye-opening. I'm starting to grasp the depth and breadth of what postpartum doula care really entails.
It's a field that's often misunderstood or underestimated, unfortunately.
Right. But as we've learned, it has the potential to significantly impact the well-being of families during such a critical time.
And that impact extends far beyond those first few weeks after birth. Research has actually shown that having doula support can lead to long-term benefits, such as increased breastfeeding success, lower rates of postpartum depression, and stronger parent-infant bonding.
That's amazing. So it's not just about surviving those early weeks, it's about setting families up to thrive in the long run.
Exactly. And these benefits extend to the entire family unit, creating a more positive and supportive environment for everyone involved.
Given these profound benefits, it makes you wonder why this kind of support isn't more widely available.
You've hit on a crucial point. Unfortunately, access to postpartum doula care is often limited by things like cost, location, and cultural barriers.
It seems like a missed opportunity, considering the impact it could have on families and communities.
I agree. Increasing awareness of the benefits of postpartum doula care and advocating for policies that make these services more accessible should be top priorities. Everyone deserves to have the support they need during this significant life change.
What are your thoughts on how we can make postpartum doula care more inclusive and accessible to all families?
Yeah, that's a great question. And one that deserves serious attention. It's clear that postpartum doula care has the potential to positively impact so many families. But we need to find ways to bridge those gaps in access and make these services available to everyone who needs them.
Absolutely. We need to be talking about this more. Raising awareness about the benefit, advocating for policies that make doula care more affordable and accessible, regardless of income, location, or background.
Yeah, and it's not just about those systemic changes. It's also about shifting cultural perspectives as well. Sometimes the postpartum period is treated as something to just get through instead of a time that deserves dedicated care and support. That's so true. We need to normalize asking for help and recognizing that postpartum support is not a luxury. It's essential for the well-being of both parents and babies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as we've seen, that support can take many forms, from practical help with household tasks and infant care to emotional validation and evidence-based information. It's all about meeting families where they are and providing the specific support they need to thrive.
Speaking of thriving, what are some things that individual families can do if they're interested in exploring postpartum doula care?
That is a great question for our listeners. If you're considering hiring a postpartum doula, start by doing some research. Look for doulas in your area who specialize in the type of support you're looking for. Don't hesitate to ask about their training, their experience, and approach to care. It's also a good idea to schedule a consultation to see if their personality and philosophy align with yours. Remember, this is a partnership, so finding someone you feel comfortable with is key.
That's excellent advice. And remember, postpartum doula care is an investment in your well-being and the well-being of your family. It's a way to navigate this transition with more confidence, support, and ultimately joy.
I think we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, but I think it's safe to say that holistic postpartum doula care is about so much more than just practical help. It's about acknowledging the profound transformation that families go through during this time and providing compassionate, individualized support that nurtures the whole person, body, mind, and spirit.
You've captured the essence of it perfectly. And as we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with this thought. How can we each play a role in creating a world where postpartum support is not only available, but celebrated as a fundamental part of the journey into parenthood?
What a powerful question to ponder. We've learned so much in this deep dive into the world of holistic postpartum doula care. It's a topic that deserves more attention, more conversation, and more support.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this journey of discovery.
And to our listeners, thank you for diving deep with us. We hope this exploration has provided you with valuable insights and perhaps even inspired you to think differently about the postpartum experience. Until next time, keep those curious minds engaged and those hearts open to learning.